back to this property with our 25 birds and converted a storage shed into the chicken coop that you see behind us. So it has come a long way. We had to add insulation, we cut in windows, we added a new roof, and we have relocated it and attached a summer and winter chicken run to the outside.
We built this chicken coop with the intention of keeping the birds warm in the very, very cold temperatures we get here during the winter months. And we've had a little over 2 months to test this bad boy out. It's been great, and we can now finally show you guys how it's been working.
We're going to give you a complete tour of the inside and the outside, how the whole coop works, some of the breeds of birds that we have, as well as some of the issues that we've had with the coop so far and how we have kind of tried to resolve those.
That being said, let's get this tour started. We're heading inside first.
The first thing that we have on our chicken coop is a thermometer. We have one outside so we can see conveniently what temperature it is. Looks like we're sitting right about 0 degrees today. We're gonna head into the coop. Woo! We've got another thermometer located right inside the door, and it looks like it's sitting at 33 degrees in here and a little bit higher on the humidity side, about 90%. So this is it. It is a 12 by 20 shed, and we have a little bit of a deck on the front that we store all their food and just extra hay and shavings like that. There's a small equipment room, and the building itself is actually raised off the ground, so we have it skirted. We've got 2 big windows. Those were one of the first things that we needed to put in because it was very chilly in here when we arrived in the spring months. This whole room looked entirely different. The first few weeks, the chickens were not that happy in here. It was dark, and the windows made a huge difference. They let a lot of heat and light in. There's a lot of ground space in here because the chickens do spend a lot of time in here in the winter months, and we definitely anticipated that. All their food and water is kind of placed throughout the ground. We've got nest boxes on the back wall, and we have quite a few of them because we have a lot of girls that like to lay eggs. And they also like to sit on their eggs, and sometimes we let them hatch out. So we made sure to have extra boxes. We've got some extra feeders, little hooks underneath here that house some pellets for when we're gone on trips. This is the door to the outside. It's closed off right now at the moment. There's frost buildup, as you may notice, because of the difference in temperature from outside to inside. And we do have R19 insulation in these walls and R30 in the roof, so it's very well insulated. And underneath we have 2-inch foam board also insulating the floor. The floor is quite dirty right now. It's due for a cleaning, but I wanted to show you what it looks like when it gets a little bit messy in here. So this is what's attributing to the moisture in the coop, the food, and just some of the chicken's droppings. We made the decision to put some laminate flooring down, which is one of the best things we've done for our chicken coop. It makes it very easy to clean, and it's waterproof, so it protects the subfloor. We also made the decision to paint the walls of the inside of the coop to protect the OSB and kind of brighten things up in here, make it nice and lively. There are a few things that we do want to add, maybe some more perches. We want to put in a permanent dust box. Please forgive the birds, they're a little bit loud today. The dust box that we have over in the corner is working quite well, but unfortunately the materials are all fluffed out. Eric put ash in there and some sand, and they liked it so much that there's none left in there, so we need to replenish it, but we'll probably put in a better setup for next year. Okay, you can go down. We've got the roofs behind us on the back wall. We have a little stair ramp to get up there, and we have 2 for all the birds that we have. You could probably fit 50 birds or more in here. You'll notice that they are 2x4s, and they're oriented flat like this because we want their feet to basically spread out on the wood, and their bodies can go on top, and they can keep their feet warm in the winter months. We don't want to put anything small or round that their feet will kind of curl around. And the roost continues to a little ladder that we have at the end. They seem to like this a lot. It seems to be a really good height for our birds too. We tend to like to put them up a little bit higher in the coop so they can keep a little bit warmer that way. That's about it for the area that the chickens occupy. We have lighting in here because we have dark winters. Eric's gonna talk a little bit more about that setup.
When you first walk in the coop, which is over here, we have our equipment room, and we do have an extra light here. This is kind of our light. I'm gonna switch that on so we can see a little bit better in here. The inverter's off, let me turn it on. So this is the only light in our whole entire automated light system in here that is not 12 volts. So this is a regular light you can plug into a wall outlet right here. It runs off the inverter. It is fully adjustable. So I think it goes from, I don't remember what it is, but it's like 20 watts to 120 watts. I think we got it at about 50 watts right now. Let's head inside the room. So we're gonna shut the door behind us. Those chickens are super loud today, and that was the main purpose for this utility room, is to create an area that the chickens could not get to. We have electrical in here, we have diesel fuel, just things you don't want chickens around. A goal with this coop was to have it be fully automated and be able to take care of itself and the chickens if we ever wanna go on a trip for a few days, and it does that. Our electrical system is very simple. It's actually an old solar setup we had at our old place. Battery bank with 6-volt batteries. We have our inverter and we have our charge controller. We do have 2 panels outside, but I'm gonna tell you right now in the dead of winter, we're bringing in, it's going between 0 and 6 watts, so pretty much nothing. The inverter is what's capable of charging our batteries, and all we do is I have a cord hooked to our generator over at our house, so when our generator's running to power our house, it's also charging up these batteries. So these batteries are pretty much always full. 12-volt switch panel for all of the 12-volt lights we have in here, and we went with low wattage, I guess they're called light strips. We have about 4 in the coop. They're about 8 watts each. And this controls the lights right here. They turn on, but they go through a 12-volt timer. So right now, the coop lights, they come on at 6:30 in the morning. They go off at 6:30 in the evening. And then for about 15 minutes, I have 2 small LED license plate lights that just barely light up the coop. In case when the lights go off, the chickens are on the ground, they can still see and they can get up onto the roost at night. It's been working absolutely perfect for us. As far as heat for the chicken coop, our options were pretty limited because we are off grid, so we can't just run an electric heater or anything like that. We decided to go with something that I'm gonna say is working out way better than I expected. And it started off kind of as like an experiment, but it is perfect for this chicken coop. So this is a diesel heater, and to run this, you need 12-volt power. So we got our batteries, and you need diesel fuel, which is right here. This is a 15-liter tank. I think that's about 4 gallons. And I'm actually gonna turn this on real quick. It's getting kind of cold in that coop. Super easy to do. You come in here, you hold the power button, it goes to whatever level you had it on last time, which is level 1. Usually takes about a minute to get fired up and running, and then it takes about another minute till it's actually pushing out hot air. So in 2 minutes, the chickens are gonna be crowded around that little vent out there getting warmed up. Very simple, very inexpensive for these heaters. You have the switch panel, you have fuel for it, which is diesel fuel. You can also run kerosene in them. You have a little fuel pump. You have the intake for the diesel heater. You have the exhaust, which is plumbed outside. The diesel heater is up and running. Let's go check out the vent where it blows into the chicken coop. It's pretty funny that the chickens have gotten so accustomed to this heater. They know where it is, and when it's really cold, you'll come inside and they'll all be huddled around here. So this is the vent. It's already hot, and it's been less than 2 minutes, and I've got it pointed right towards the ground. Heat rises, and you can tell this thing, if I hold this feather up to it, it blows quite hard. So the lighting in here, I mentioned we got 4 lights. You can see them up top. Super simple, exposed wiring. 4 lights is more than enough to light this whole entire chicken coop. Honestly, if we leave and I want to save power, we can easily shut 2 of those ones off. Let's go outside. I'm going to show you a couple more things. My ears. They're something else, aren't they? Oh gosh, it's cold. One thing I really like that we did is these outdoor lights. This is also a 12-volt light. It stays on the same amount of time that the indoor lights stay on. So it's really nice when you're coming out here and it's dark, whether it's the morning or the evening. You can mix food out here, you can do all the water, and it just looks nice looking at it from the cabin window. Over here is where we can charge the batteries. Right now, like I said, we are charging it with, where is it at? I think it's this one. No. It's this one right here. So this runs all the way to the cabin. It's charging off the generator when the generator's running. It's not on right now, but if we ever want to bring our little Honda generator over here, it gets really cold in the winter. They don't like to run, so we keep it in this insulated box right here, and we can just plug it right into the coop. It'll charge up the batteries. The solar panels are right here. They work great when the sun's out, and then this is the exhaust for the diesel heater. We've had no problems with this getting too hot or anything. It's wrapped in exhaust wrap. It's been great. Here is the outlet for where our batteries inside can vent outside. That is the coop and how it works.
This is our entrance to the outdoor chicken run. This is our previous garden high tunnel that we converted into a winter and summer hangout for them basically, and it's nice and secure. We made sure to dig the hardware cloth down into the ground and cover it back up with rocks. They also have some good ventilation passing through there. It is a 12 by 30, so it is quite large. We've got this nice secure wooden door. Let's head inside. You can tell right now this area is not occupied by the chickens. They loved it at first, a little bit earlier in the fall months, but probably like 6 weeks ago, they started to just stay indoors. And I believe that's probably because we started to creep down to very cold temperatures outdoors. The framework is really sturdy. Eric welded it. We've got a tarp primarily for shade because we also get really warm weather in the summer months, and our chickens are not very heat tolerant. They tend to be much cold hardier. And then for the front section, we left it poly panels. A lot of that sunlight can kind of penetrate in here in addition to the lights that are on right at the moment. We have 6 altogether, but only 2 are on. Overall, this space is amazing because it's safe. I anticipate they're gonna really love it come the summer months, and we do let them free range. We also have an electric fence that we set up when there's no snow on the ground, but this is where they can hang out securely when we leave for trips if we don't want to worry about them getting eaten. Probably we'll add a little bit more structures for them out here. It's pretty bare bones. We've left the dirt. I anticipated they were going to be dust bathing out here. That's not really the case. They do have a deck. They love that back there. My absolute favorite thing about this chicken run is how easy it is to remove the snow. So the truth is, I have not removed it recently, but it is incredibly easy with the panels and tarp that we chose to put on. I can just take the rake and just drag it right off. I used to have to work really hard at our old place to get it off of the greenhouse plastic. Right now it looks like a boneyard in here, but it will probably come to life in a few more months.
I'm usually up in the morning before Arielle, so I get the duties of taking care of the chickens. Let me walk you through kind of like my morning routine. It is very simple. So from inside the house, I will grab one little bin of their soaked feed that's been sitting overnight by the fire, and I grab my pail of water. That's about 2 gallons. We head on inside. And since we have so many chickens, I divide this food between a few bowls. That way they all get to eat, and they really love this nice wet soaked feed. And then we start heading out. I grab their water, and when I'm right here, I also will check the temperature and see what it is in here. It's already warming up. It's 38 degrees in here, and depending on the weather is kind of like how I run that heater. So right now, I'll either be turning off the heater or I'll be turning it on, but we're just gonna leave it on for now. And this is where I toss my water. I've been tossing it here all season, off of the deck in one swift movement. Clean this out with a little warm water. Pour the rest in here. That's it. That's all it requires. Sometimes I'll give them some extra snacks and whatnot, but they are good after all that. And I head inside, and we don't got to come out here again until the evening time. And when we do come out at night, it's just as simple. So we collect the eggs. I either turn on or turn off the heater depending on the temperature. And the last thing we'll do is we'll grab a bowl kind of like one of these big green ones. We'll fill it up with our dry feed. We'll then take it inside with us for the evening. We'll pour some water in it and it'll sit by the wood stove, and we'll give them that the next day. Our routine changes just a little bit if we want to head out on a trip for a few days. So we'll both kind of just tag team it. We'll fill up both of their pellet feeders. We'll fill up a bunch of bowls of soaked feed and dry food. We'll use that one water plus another fountain water. That gives them a total of about 5 gallons of water. The next thing I'll do is make sure our batteries are fully charged, and then I will top off the diesel heater fuel tank as high as I can get it. And that's it. They're good for about 4 to 5 days at that point. And as far as the diesel heater and fuel usage, we use right now about 10 gallons of diesel a month to run this chicken coop and heat it. And that's with the diesel heater not running 24/7. Sometimes I'll run it at night, sometimes I'll run it a little in the morning. It just depends. So the heater's constantly going on and off. But if we go on a trip, the diesel heater stays on 24/7 the whole time we're gone. I'll give you an example. We left for a trip and we were gone for 4 days exactly. The diesel heater ran on level 1. And when we returned, there was just a tiny bit of fuel left in it. So in 4 days, it burned 4 gallons of diesel fuel. So on level 1, it burns 1 gallon of diesel fuel a day, which isn't too bad. And as far as how warm that diesel heater will keep this coop, when we left on that trip, we hit extremely cold temperatures. It got down to -40 Fahrenheit. And inside the chicken coop, when we got here, it was 50 degrees Fahrenheit, above zero. So it's pretty impressive.
Grabbing some treats, and then we're gonna head inside and talk about the breeds. We have owned chickens for 8 or more years, and we have had the pleasure of getting to take care of probably like 30 or more breeds. So Eric and I specifically wanted certain chickens for the environment that we're in, and we're also looking for certain traits. When we moved up here a few years back, we first started with 30 Icelandic chickens. And those were actually hatched in an incubator. We picked them up from a local breeder. They were little chicks. We have 4 of them still with us from that first generation, and we've been able to hatch out a lot of birds from that first crew. We're on our 4th generation of Icelandics. This is Ruru. He is one of our main roosters, and he is my absolute favorite bird that we have. He's beautiful. I don't know if you can see him. He's huge too. Oh, Ruru. And one of the things that's unique about Icelandics is they're known as a land race. So all that really means is they have been developed over a long period of time more on their ability to survive in the climate that they're being raised. So there's more focus on that and making sure that they're well suited to the environmental conditions and less on like specific traits or looks. So that's why with this land race, you can get a really wide variety of colors, and they don't conform to a certain standard. So again, that's just another favorite thing of mine, because they are like a box of chocolates. You know, when they hatch out, you don't know what you're gonna get, and you have this just beautiful array of colors. Another draw of ours to the Icelandics was that they go broody, so they're able to hatch out their own babies. They make really good moms. They've proven that over the years. We're gonna set Ruru down here real quick. And in fact, they tend to go broody a little bit too much. It's a little bit of a hassle at times. With the amount of birds we have, I feel like if we let them hatch out their babies, we would probably have 200 new chicks every year, which is just way too many. So we have to break them very often. And that's one of the reasons why we looked into other breeds. But we do, as a whole, really love them. They are so characteristic. They have, not all of them, but some of them have this little pom-pom or crest on their head. We have one who's named Cresty, who has a very large crest on her head. They're definitely not an extremely appropriate chicken, I would say, for most folks, because they're not that friendly. And I know a lot of people want friendly chickens. Icelandics are not friendly. They're not gonna follow you around the property or anything like that. They may come up to you if you have food, but for the most part, they're pretty wild, especially if you let the moms raise the chicks. Another thing about them, it could be good or bad, is that they're known to be flighty, meaning that they fly up a lot and fly out of their enclosures. We haven't experienced that too much, but we have had to clip their wings, and they're very good flyers, shall I say, too. And I think that's actually kind of a good thing, because I think they can get away from predators a little bit better than some of the other breeds that we have. They lay pretty decent. I'm gonna say it's average. They lay in the winter months as well. We're gonna let the ladies do their business over there and try to keep a little quiet in here. We have 2 other chickens that are actually hybrids. So they hatched them out, the girls. We had 4 Jersey Giants a few years ago. We no longer have them, but we do have 2 that are crosses, and they're beautiful birds. So they're half Icelandic, half Jersey Giant. They're all black, but they're absolutely gorgeous. We picked up 2 other land races this year. One is a 𝐻𝐿𝐷, and the other is a silver rudd. I believe that's probably a breed, not an actual land race. It wasn't developed that long ago. Those chickens lay the green eggs that we have, and sometimes they even have a little bit of a blue hue. So far, I really like them. I don't have that much to say about them. They don't particularly stand out that much to me. We have dark gray and black. They also come in a splash color, but we don't have any of those, for example. We did not keep any of those roosters to breed those on. So we're probably gonna be sticking with Icelandics and the 𝐻𝐿𝐷s. My second favorite chicken is probably the 𝐻𝐿𝐷s. They are kind of quirky like the Icelandics, and they come in 3 different varieties. So you can get the smooth coated ones, you can have woolly feathers. Those ones are pretty cool looking. We have a lot of those, and they can either have feathers on their shank or they can be no feathers on their shanks. And we did keep 2 roosters, so we do plan to breed those in the future. They're not as crazy as our Icelandics. They seem far more docile, especially the hens. The roosters have great personalities, and they all seem to be pretty cold hardy. So far we have that going for all of the chickens. And the next 3 breeds that we have were adoptees. So we were able to adopt 6 girls from some friends, and I actually love them. They are very friendly, much friendlier than some of our Icelandics who we've never even been able to feed out of our own hands. And the first breed we'll talk about is the speckled Sussex. All of these are actually older breeds that have been developed. These ones particularly have a very beautiful coat. We rallied one up so you can take a look at that. And I don't have a name for her. We don't actually have names for most of our birds. We just have a handful for some of the more characteristic looking ones. Hey, you're fine. These birds are really sweet. They are cold hardy, and they produce a huge egg. So if that's something you're looking for, really high, I consider this high laying breeds because they lay like 5 times a week a really big brown egg, and they've been laying this winter, and we've had no issues with them. They are just really friendly birds. Next up is the Dominique, and I believe their origin dates back really far. So I think she may actually be considered like a heritage bird too. They are the most friendly chicken I have ever met. I think Eric would agree. If you are looking for a friendly, cold hardy chicken that lays well, I cannot think of a better breed since we've owned them, which is a few months. She's just a sweetheart. And she also has a sister. This is a silver-laced Wyandotte, and they come in all sorts of different colors. I think this was the original color. These birds are also really nice and lay big brown eggs pretty consistently. It's definitely more noticeable than some of the, especially the Icelandics. Those don't lay as much as these birds do. And so if you keep 2 different kinds like that, you're gonna notice a difference in their egg production. And these exact birds have overwintered in this climate, so they are very hardy. They were not in a heated coop last year, and how they're raised definitely does affect their ability to handle the climate. So the more they're exposed to the cold, the definitely harder they become. All of these birds are also bigger, if you may have noticed, than the Icelandics that we talked about. So the Icelandics are really small, and she's a really big bird. She's not too pleased with me right now. Come here. This is Dance Pants. She is a prized possession. Eric noticed that she is extremely friendly. She does not try to get away from you like most of them. She's got feathers on her shanks, so that's kind of a good example. That's why we named her. Just a really, really nice bird. And that's about it. We've got a very eclectic mix of chickens in here. Although the coop has been amazing, there have been a few things that we've learned and kind of come up with solutions for.
And things that have gone wrong. So the first thing was a problem that we had basically when we were putting this coop together, and that is the inverter. It was throwing a code, it kept not working. You'd give it a few days, it would start working. For the majority of the time, it's still working. I think like, what was it, 3 weeks ago? It kind of just stopped working.
Twice.
And then we were at the point where we were like, okay, we got to order something else. So I found it's called an RV converter off of Amazon. It's an 80 amp converter, and it was really cheap, and we don't really need an inverter in there. So I ordered that, I have it, but then the inverter started working again.
It's still working right now.
And it's been working. So we're gonna keep it in there for now, and if it does go out, we have the backup converter we can put in there. And with the diesel heater, because I run it on low, like we always run it on level 1, that's enough for this
So
coop.
efficient.
It kind of gets suited up and gets dirty. You're supposed to run them a little bit higher to kind of clean them out. So what that means is I have to take it apart a little more often and clean it out, which isn't a big deal. To pull it out of there, clean it, and put it back in, I think it maybe takes me about a half an hour.
It's actually kind of funny because the coop is just so efficient how it's heating up that leads us to our next problem, which is moisture. A few things we didn't really anticipate there. We get some buildup of ice with the condensation on the windows. And then the only time that's really a problem is if we go on longer trips and the diesel heater is running for like a few days.
It really melts the ice in there, and then you got a bigger ice dam.
Yeah, you get some melting and thaw. It's just not that great. Usually in winter, you have, the moisture's just locked up, right? Everything's
Right.
frozen, but because we're heating it, we've got some,
Moisture.
yeah, moisture.
And then the door, so that same thing, the moisture, the ice freezing, it's cold outside, hot inside. The door like always freezes shut. It's a pretty tight door, so you gotta like, bam, you gotta like break into it almost every time you go in the coop. And what I'll do is I'll take my knife and I'll use this flat edge, and I'll just scrape around the perimeter of the door, and it'll be good for a few more days.
He's chiseled it too around the door. What is that, the base when you walk in?
Yeah, it gets pretty thick around the bottom too.
We did anticipate the chickens would use the high tunnel more, but just as the winter went on, they're very happy inside, so I really don't blame them. And that's not really a con, it's just something they're not using right at the moment.
When we first had this coop set up and going, I believe I was at 14 hours of light for the chickens. So they would come on at 6:30, and I think they were off at 8:30. I changed that a long time ago. Maybe like a month and a half ago, to just 12 hours. So 6:30 in the morning, 6:30 in the evening. The egg production is great on those hours. I forgot to mention with the diesel heater, we did have one problem when we went on a trip. We turned it on. Things were supposed to be good for the chickens. I think we were gone for 3 days. We got back here, the diesel heater wasn't running. It was still full of fuel, and the chicken coop was frozen. Their water was frozen and everything. So what I did was the air intake on the diesel heater, there's so much dust in that chicken coop, and I had a recommendation that maybe you could put like some sort of filter on there, and I was like, that's a pretty good idea. So I took a piece of cheesecloth, I put it over the intake to act as like a filter to filter out the dust. But what happened was it wasn't getting enough air into the diesel heater. It was getting too much fuel. It threw a code. It immediately shut off. So we took off the little filter and we're just running it as is.
And the chickens were fine. It was obviously really cold. I believe it was -30 that weekend, but they survived no problem.
And it wasn't actually -30 in the coop when we got home.
No, it was just -30 outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. There's been just as many positives as there are things we didn't expect. Egg production is for sure one of them. We spend a lot of our time like preserving eggs for the times that we don't have them that much because they do slow down in winter.
Oh yeah.
And so now we're just like, we don't do that at all anymore for the time being because we prefer fresh eggs. So that's definitely an upside is the eggs.
The egg production. And I'll give you like an example. We are getting a ton of eggs. So I don't think there's been a day we've gotten under 14 eggs.
Yeah, like 16 and 17 is the lowest now. I think.
Yeah, and then there's been multiple days in a row where we're getting 22 eggs. So 22 eggs one day, 22 eggs the next day. They're just pumping them out in there. They're so happy. They're acting like it's summertime in that coop.
It may have something to do with the fact that we have 30 hens in there too.
We do got a lot of chickens, but I'll tell you right now, if we weren't heating that coop and giving them the light,
yeah,
we would be getting barely any eggs from those chickens.
And that's another upside is just their overall health and happiness. They're much happier, which is what we originally wanted for them. You can just see it in their behavior. Every time we go in here, we say it's a chicken party because they're just running around having a great time. Now, when you heat a coop, you also get moisture in their droppings. That has been something that's been happening in there, and I clean it out pretty routinely. Normally I cannot clean the coop in the winter because it's frozen, so that's kind of nice actually. I just have to get in there a little more often and clean it out, put it in the compost, but then I get fresh bedding in there, and I didn't really anticipate that. I also didn't really anticipate that the coop would stay so warm with minimal work on our end or Eric's end, and the water just stays unfrozen, and we can actually feed them the soaked food in the winter. We've never been able to do that for our birds. So the soaked food, they eat a lot less, it's healthier. We do whole grains, so they just prefer it that way. That's a big plus.
It is, and I think the water is just like huge. So going from our old coop, multiple times a day, you're bringing water out there, and then if you go on a trip, they're basically just stuck to eating snow, which chickens can do no problem. Here, we can put 5 gallons of water in there and leave for 4 days. And they can have like fresh water the whole time. It's pretty awesome.
In the past, Eric and I really haven't had someone to take care of our birds for us. When we go on these trips in the winter for 2 or 3 nights, the chickens are on their own. So things like you said do freeze. The eggs will freeze, and it's not ideal. We had one neighbor the last year that was checking on our chickens for us, and that made a huge difference. But when we set this one up, that was the thing. We needed this to be a reliable coop for us when we were gone.
And it is. This coop is more efficient than when we thought. I mean, we are on our first winter here, and we knew that it was going to get so much colder here than our old place, and I was just hoping that that diesel heater was going to be able to keep up. And I was thinking a lot of times we're going to have to run on level 5 or level 6 and really be cranking through the fuel. But I'm pretty confident that I don't think we're ever going to have to take it off of level 1. That's how efficient it is in this insulated coop.
And you think that maybe we'll add a second tank so we can even do longer trips, like over 5 days?
Yeah, that might be one of the cons too, is that tank is 15 liters, so I believe it's 3.9 gallons. It will last 4 days straight, so that's a pretty good amount, and then I'm sure the coop would hold the heat for a couple more days.
Birds would be fine, yeah.
So what we talked about doing is either adding a second tank that I have and connecting them, so we'd have double the amount, or just taking that tank out and maybe putting a bigger tank in there.
We're gonna keep monitoring the coop, and we may make more changes. We do want to make the summer automated as well, so we can go on trips and not have to worry about it. But let's talk about some of our favorite things. My favorite thing is definitely what you just said, how efficient it is. It kind of really surpassed what we ever expected. And I love the lights. I really didn't want the lights at first, but Eric wanted to put them in, and they are so beautiful at night. Even if the chickens don't go out in the high tunnel, it's really beautiful to look at, and they don't use that much energy.
Yep, my 2 favorite things probably are, number 1, how inexpensive this coop has become to run. Since we have the coop plugged into the generator at the house, it's automatically just taking that extra energy and just charging up the coop, so we don't have to pay, I guess, for gas, for charging the batteries. And then the diesel fuel, like we said, it barely uses any diesel. My second favorite thing is probably the fact that the chickens are acting like it's summertime. They're no longer just sitting there miserable trying to survive. They're actually enjoying their life and laying eggs.
Absolutely, it's been amazing. Thanks to Eric, who pretty much did all of it. Almost all of it.
It was a lot of planning, and like we said, it was an experiment. But for us, this climate and the shed that was here that we converted into the chicken coop, it couldn't have turned out any better for us.
Yeah, I agree. We're gonna head inside. It's a little brisk out here. We want to make a flock block for the chickens because they've been tearing through theirs super fast this winter.
Let's go.
This was Eric's idea. So if you've never heard of a flock block, they're kind of like a snack for chickens or a treat. They have seeds, grains, vitamins, and other minerals that chickens need, but we are going to be making more of a protein or meat block. So we have our seeds that we're gonna be using. We've got some mealworms in there. Actually, I think they're black soldier flies, and the mixture is wheat, barley, we've got milo, corn, and I believe oats, and then we also have sunflower seeds. We've got some of the meaty bits that came off of the bones when we rendered some bone broth down. We have pork fat, and we have a whole bunch of meat that's from that moose that we salvaged. So we're going to mix all of this together in this container, and then we're going to freeze it outside. Get that outside.